Hello everyone, welcome back to Interpreting Tradition. I'm going to have a little chat today about politics and geopolitics. If you remember, if you have been following me, I had done one on the 20th century, the different political philosophy, really, the different ideologies and so on. And we stopped at the collapse of the Soviet Union. And this is going to be a sort of a follow-up to that. I'm going to upload there for you. You will see it down below, 3 videos that if you're interested in knowing the history of how we are where we are now and what is happening in the world in geopolitics, they are fantastic. I tell you, fantastic introductions to you. I used to use them a lot for my students. Let me introduce the videos first. The first one is called Flashpoints and is by Dr. George Friedman. He used to post a lot of videos on geopolitics, but I think he's rather advanced in age at the moment, and I only see 1 or 2 very late ones. The one that I'm going to put down here for you is a talk given in 2014. Let me just introduce it to you so that you know and you don't get confused about what he's talking about, because he is talking about 20th century Europe. He was born in Hungary, and during the Second World, he was Jewish. He is Jewish, and during the Second World War, his parents emigrated to the United States, and he's going to give you a very personal account of what it was like. The European countries always with so many problems about borders. You know, it's not the same as if, you are an island, then your geographical borders are very well defined. Or the United States, with one ocean to one side and another ocean to another. The Central European countries always had a lot of wars because of borders. Okay, difference between a nation and a state is that a nation is formed by people who share certain characteristics, but it is language, religion, history, whatever. But it is possible in Central Europe for a nation of people to be divided into different countries. You could have the same people with the same religion, with the same language, part of this country and the other part in this other country, the same with the Middle East. So that is creates a lot of tension and gives rise to a lot of wars. State, however, is defined politically, as the government, the nation. Yes, so now we talk about the nation state. Hopefully in a state you have people who share the same history, the same culture and so on, but sometimes it's not the same. And George Friedman is going to very interesting talk about his family, how they left Hungary, all kinds of things. Okay, but I want you to I want to say this, that he's going to talk about Ukraine, but about the problems in the Ukraine, but he's not talking about what is happening now. This talk was given in 2014, I believe, and he's referring, when he says the problems now in the Ukraine, excuse me, he's referring to what was happening in 2014 in the Ukraine. In other words, there was a coup and a government, color revolution. A government was instituted there. Okay, so the Ukraine divided into, different nations, because part of it, a third of it, was Russian. It had always been Russian, speak Russian and so on. The other part Ukrainian, and that part of Ukraine sometimes had been part of Poland, Lithuania, all kinds of things. Okay, so when he's saying the problems that we're having now is referring to that coup, that color revolution, and then when Russia then took Crimea. Those are the problems that he is referring to in that video, not about the problems, not about the current war. Okay. The other, this Professor John Mearsheimer from the University of Chicago. He has many videos right now, but I used to use this one as an introduction to my students to geopolitics. It's a talk called The Great Delusion, and that's a book that he wrote. It is an answer to a previous book that had been written by an English author back in 1910, entitled The Great Illusion. And in that, Nordangard had talked about the fact that the way to avoid wars is when countries are interdependent. Okay, if you depend economically on each other, you're less likely to start a war than when you're not. And Professor John Mearsheimer is going to answer that. And he wrote that, Nordangard, in 1910. And he said that war in Europe was practically impossible because the European nations now were intertwined economically. 4 years later, we have the First World War and so on. So, Professor Mearsheimer now, in this particular video, calls it, and he wrote a book, The Great Delusion. And he's going to very, very clear. I disagree with him in a few little things, but never mind. He's going to address that. He's actually going to say, well, perhaps that was not the case. In other words, it is when countries are intertwined politically, historically, next to each other, France and Germany together there. That is when you have wars. He says, for example, Brazil is not going to start a war with, Madagascar because they have nothing in common. They are not dealing with each other, but France and Germany, they are together. Okay, so he's going to argue this point, but he's going to talk about basically from the fall of the Soviet Union, when America became the only superpower, the one hegemon, unipolar world, and what happened afterwards. And the third one is actually is called Stunning History of Why the World Has Gone Mad. And this is beyond these two other videos on what is happening globally. The professor is arguing that what we now call the global elite, the Davos man, or they actually is not something that has started right now. You've heard about the Great Reset and so on. He's going to show you, this professor, how it started really after the Second World War, creating the global institutions and so on. So he's going to be like the answer to Professor John Mearsheimer and the Great Delusion. Okay, so I do hope that they'll help. They are more or less about 30 minutes each two of them, perhaps not even that. The Stunning History, the last one, is about 45 minutes. But I hope you enjoy them, and I hope that if you may be an expert, you don't need me then, but if you are just starting in politics and geopolitics, and you don't quite understand what is what is going on, but you don't quite understand why, I would encourage you to watch these 3 videos. Okay, enjoy, and thank you very much for watching. And please subscribe. I appreciate that always. Thank you. Bye-bye.